The African Union urged the transitional country not to extend its stay in power beyond 18 months. With the exception of the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, no other African countries sent their heads of state. A handful of important neighbors, Niger, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, were represented by their ministers. The African Union and the West African bloc ECOWAS have been fierce critics of the strings of coups that have swept the region in the past 2 years, with takeovers in Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Mali, as well as Chad.
Still on the African scene, crossing over to Sudan. Now in Sudan, 7 million children do not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly 2/3 of the 45 million inhabitants live. Sadly, this is a catastrophe for an entire generation, according to a non-governmental organization. Now, as a result, Sudan and its 12.4 million students are the second most vulnerable country in terms of schooling, according to Risk Educational Index. More information in the following reports.
In Sudan, 7 million children do not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly 2/3 of the 45 million inhabitants live, a catastrophe for an entire generation, according to the NGOs. Already during the 30-year dictatorship of Omar al-Bashir, who will be removed in office in 2019 following the popular protest movement, families withdrew their children from school to cope with the economic crisis.
The main reason behind dropping out of school is extreme poverty in rural areas. I would like to point out that providing school meals have contributed to their stability. Putting them to work is not good. For the future, there is nothing like education, but one is forced to put them to work to at least bring in daily food. But if we can afford education, we will always wish it for them. It's all about living conditions. If we let them all go to school, and if we have a big family, I won't be able to provide for the family.
The political and economic stagnation that followed the coup a year ago, recurring ethnic conflicts and prolonged school closures due to the COVID-19 pandemic have only worsened the situation in this country, one of the poorest in the world. And every year, heavy rains destroy schools. This summer, 600 schools were damaged. As a result, Sudan and its 12.4 million students are the second most vulnerable country in terms of schooling, according to the Risk Education Index. A symbol of the distress that reaches even teachers, the latter regularly demonstrate to demand better salaries or denounce a military power incapable of raising the country.
We hope that there will be no strikes, so we can continue to provide classes. Hopefully, it will be a good school year.
Action to get them back into school, poverty and inequality are likely to increase. In Mozambique, northern Cabo Delgado province, more than 4,000 people have been killed and nearly 1 million were forced to flee their homes. While attacks and civilians continue, some areas are now under government control. We have more for you on that.
A year ago, this town was run by Islamist insurgents. Their main base was at the airport, but these troops chased them away, Rwandan forces supporting Mozambique. Today, life is slowly getting back to normal. Those who fled are returning.
There's this other guy, this other CNN guy now.
People were killed here. They were murdered. They were slaughtered, cut into pieces. So we ran away. But now that there's peace, we've decided to come back.
At the beach, the people resume their livelihoods and go out fishing again. Calm has also returned to the village of Kinga. Displaced residents, like Abdallah Pinti, back home after a whole year away seeking refuge.
There were gunshots, so we ran out of the house. And then my father fell. We looked back and then my mother said, "Abdallah, your father has been shot. Look, he's not getting up." His body was left there for 3 days.
When Abdallah Pinti came back, he found his home had been looted, but at least not burned down like many others. Now he's trying to farm again.
Lots of the young people have no work. They sit there doing nothing. But since the Rwandan army arrived, we've had peace. My mother and I can go to work in the fields again.
While the residents are relieved to be back, they're not happy with their government, which failed to protect them from the brutal insurgents. They also accused government troops of heavy-handedness when they eventually arrived.
We expected better from our countrymen. When they meet us on the streets, they stop us and they mistreat us instead of going after the enemy. At one of their checkpoints, a young man on a motorcycle fell. The soldiers all started beating him until he died. They've killed a lot of people. It's not good.
Soldiers deny the accusations, and Mozambique's defense ministry has not responded to our questions on the claims. What's certain, though, is the conflict is far from over. In fact, it's moving further south, where attacks on villages are reported almost daily, now even in neighboring provinces like Nampula, farther away from where the troops from Rwanda and the regional bloc SADC are based.
Will keep moving southwards, so that is expected. So you just need to maintain vigilance. The forces, the SADC as well as our own forces, will maintain vigilance in the areas that we occupy. And for the areas that are beyond Cabo Delgado, like Nampula, the Mozambican forces will need to also up their game.
That increased vigilance will be vital here because the residents worry the threat could still return.
Still on the African scene, crossing over to Mali. Mali's leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, received the draft of a new constitution on Tuesday, a key part of the military's bid to retain power in the crisis country until 2024. Now, the military has pledged under pressure to hold elections in February 2024 and to hand over power in March of the same year. More information in the following reports.
Its leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, received the draft of a new constitution on Tuesday, a key part of the military's bid to retain power in the crisis-hit country until 2024. The text of the preliminary draft constitution has not been made public and arrived 2 months after it was originally due, but the commission chair set up to write it said the deadline had been extended. Hussein Issa Meka warned Goïta, any constitution will be subject to challenges, criticisms, and controversy, the transitional presidency said in a statement.
The adoption of a new constitution will be a crucial milestone in the process of rebuilding the state. The drafting commission of the new constitution expresses the fervent wish that the draft be shared and accepted.
Malian authorities dominated by the military, which seized power in August 2020, cite the drafting of a new fundamental law as one of the reforms needed for the refoundation of the state. They announced the commission in June after extending military rule until 2024 and have said the constitution will be put to a referendum in March 2023.
The submission of the draft of the new constitution is only one step in the process. As soon as only the sovereign people will be called to a referendum to decide on the document. By adopting the new constitution, it is the legal founding act of Mali Kura, a new Mali that the people will have sovereignly taken.
The military has pledged under pressure to hold elections in February 2024 and to hand over power in March of the same year. In return, the regime secured an end to the sanctions imposed by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. There were strong indications that public universities in Nigeria would soon be reopened for academic activities. House of Representatives Speaker Femi Gbajamamiala, activities lawyer Femi Falana, and President of the Academic Staff Union Universities Professor Osedeke raised the hope that striking lecturers would suspend their actions in a matter of days.
There were strong indications that public universities in Nigeria would soon be reopened for academic activities. The House of Representatives Speaker Femi Gbajamamiala, activist lawyer Femi Falana, and President of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Osedeke, raised the hopes that striking lecturers would suspend their actions in a matter of days. Gbajamamiala, who spoke after a brief meeting with ASU representatives led by Professor Osokede at the National Assembly, expressed confidence that raised the hope that was echoed by Falana in Lagos at the launch of Breaking Coconuts with Your Head, A book written by Mr. Lanre Arogundade Oshodake stated, "Yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. What that means is that there is hope, but we are still negotiating." The ASU president, however, did not give a concrete date for the restart of academic activities in Nigerian universities. ASU had earlier declared a nationwide strike on the 14th of February after negotiations over welfare-related matters with the federal government broke down. But in a ruling last Friday, a 3-member panel of an Abuja appeal court led by Justice Hama Barker ordered the striking lecturers to immediately call off the 8-month-old strike. After the breakdown of negotiations, Labour and Employment Minister Senator Chris Ngige referred the conflict to the National Industrial Court for arbitration. The court asked the lecturers to return to work, a position that was upheld by the appellate court. After the meeting, Bajabiamila Oshodeke said there is light at the end of the tunnel. He lauded the House for its intervention in the matter, saying if it had done so since the beginning, the strike would only have lasted a day. Oshodeke said he had taken note of the areas covered, but a decision would be taken after consulting with members of the union. Away from that, thousands of Haitians demonstrated on Monday in Port-au-Prince to protest against the government and its goal for foreign assistance to deal with the endemic insecurity, a humanitarian crisis, and a burgeoning cholera epidemic. Now, a day after the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for immediate deployment of a special international armed force in Haiti to help the crisis-hit Caribbean state, the demonstration in the capital was marred by violence, with police using tear gas to disperse looters. More information in the following report.
Thousands of Haitians demonstrated on Monday in Port-au-Prince to protest against the government and its call for foreign assistance to deal with endemic insecurity and the burgeoning cholera epidemic. A day after the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for the immediate deployment of a special international armed force in Haiti to help the crisis-hit Caribbean state, the demonstrations in the capital was marred by violence, with police using tear gas to disperse looters. Several people were shot and one person was reported to have been killed during the rallies. Protesters blamed the police for the fatality.
This request, this government call for international armed forces, is an unconstitutional act. This is an act against the state. It is an action against the Haitian people's demands, who want a free country where everyone can eat, have health care, and live like human beings.
Haiti has been the scene for several weeks of violent demonstrations and looting after the announcement by the head of government of an increase in fuel prices. Demonstrators calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who appealed for international support, also took to the streets in other cities across the country. The Haitian government on Friday formalized its request for international assistance to staunch spiraling insecurity. Haiti, the poorest country in the Americas, is facing an acute political, economic, security, and health crisis, with the cholera epidemic now looming. Circumstances that have paralyzed the country and sparked the breakdown of law and order. Since mid-September, the country's largest fuel import terminal, in Varro, has been controlled by armed gangs, and last week health experts warned of a resurgence of cholera 3 years after an endemic that killed 10,000 people. The health ministry said Monday 32 confirmed cases of the disease and 16 deaths have already been recorded, with another 224 suspected cases during the period from October 1st to 9th. The ministry also said cases have been detected in Port-au-Prince prison, the largest in the country, where the conditions of detentions are dire. Increasing cooperation and trade between China and Africa is reopening doors for many companies on the continent. That includes in Kenya, which has become the first African nation to export avocados to China, boosting the economy and benefiting players across the avocado value chain, including farmers.
This is Kakuzi Public Limited Company, one of Kenya's listed agribusiness firms in the capital, Nairobi. Workers here are preparing the company's latest consignment of fresh avocados. The avocados are destined to be sold in one of China's largest fresh fruit and vegetable markets, Huizan, in Shanghai. Kakuzi is one of the lucky 15 Kenyan farms that have been granted access to the Chinese market. Chris Flowers is the managing director of the company.
This is our first year of exporting, and our fruit's been received very, very well. We've got some big consignments arriving very much at the moment, and for the rest of the next 4 to 5 weeks, we're going to have quite a lot of fruit going into the Chinese market. And this learning curve is going to be something that we're walking, essentially. We're walking that journey over the next month or two, and hopefully by next year, if there are challenges or difficulties, they're ironed out, and we're able to have a very smooth export process.
This is the third shipment since the two countries signed an export agreement in January this year. The company has so far exported 210 tons worth of fresh avocados to China. It's here that Kenya's premium avocados are graded, sorted, and packaged for shipment to one of the country's most lucrative markets, China. Grace Njero is the technical manager of the company. Njero is optimistic about the Kenya-China trade deal.
We hope that this is a market that can be accessed by most farmers in Kenya. It has helped us know where to train our farmers on, because we are the lucky ones to have gotten up ahead of them, and then to ensure that they also get the knowledge on how to produce good fruit that meets that kind of a market. So it has opened many training opportunities for our local farmers.
Jonathan Kipruto is the assistant general manager of the farm. Kipruto says the company believes in maintaining the export standards set by China.
I believe that the main thing is ability to meet the quality requirements which are spelled out by the Chinese market, and then maintain those standards. That will enable us to continuously supply what we produce to the China market.
Trade volume between Kenya and China has risen over the years. From January to July 2022, the total value of Kenya's imports from China was over $4.5 billion, a year-on-year increase of 25%. The total value of Kenya's exports to China was over $156 million, a year-on-year increase of 9.6%.
The Chinese market's hugely important for Kenya. We've got traditional markets, Europe, Middle East, but the Chinese market really gives us great options. As well, it complements a lot of the fruit that we produce. So the European, Middle East market tends to favor bigger fruit, and the Chinese market favors a smaller fruit. So it's a complementary market.
The breakthrough is expected to increase Kenya's foreign exchange earnings and boost the local economy.
Away from that, crossing over to Nigeria. In Lagos, Nigeria, various groups have come up with initiatives to help indigent families. Now, one of such initiatives is the Lagos Food Bank Initiative led by Michael Shubonla. Now, with the current dire situation, many in Lagos believe initiatives like this will help tackle hunger and malnutrition among indigent families across the country. More information in the following report.
Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is grappling with rising food prices that's affecting the living standards of people, according to the World Bank. Inflation was likely to push an additional 1 million Nigerians into poverty by the end of 2022. Various groups have come up with initiatives to help indigent families. One of such initiatives is the Lagos Food Bank Initiative, led by Michael Sombola.
Doing here today is like a frontline assistance to those who are at the end of hunger and food insecurity. We go from one community to the other, profiling families and then seeing their level of vulnerability, looking at their purchasing power, their disposable income, and then see how we can come in to help bridge that hunger gap. If you look at the situation of the country, there's prices of food have gone really high.
According to it, with the scarcity of food right now, I don't think people can afford it. I want to buy ragolis of kerosene. Ragolis of kerosene I'm buying 200 is now 115. You can just imagine the amount we beg is now 115. You can just imagine the amount
we beg our government to provide us something. If we want to do election now we then go use. Now we will go, they bring our card, they queue. Please tell our government, may they not forget us.
Some beneficiaries want the government to address inflation and live up to its responsibilities to citizens. But there is one fact to deal with. At least 70 million Nigerian children are undernourished, the second highest in the world, according to a 2021 UNICEF report. This is a cause for concern for the nutritionists.
The government can empower PHCs, which are primary healthcare centers, so they can be able to efficiently tackle which are primary healthcare centers, so they can be able to efficiently tackle malnutrition at the grassroots level. Food insecurity has a very big role to play in malnutrition. If the food insecurity is sort of tackled, we'll definitely see a reduction in malnutrition cases.
According to Nigeria's National Bureau for Statistics, food inflation is at 23.12%, while unemployment stands at 33.30%. With the current dire situation, many here believe initiatives like this will help tackle hunger and malnutrition among indigent families across the country.
Now, for more information and stories across the African continent, we have the African Newspaper Review. I'm Dr. Michael ADOGLO with my colleague Hazel, and we'll be right back at it. See you in a bit. Welcome to the Newspaper Review on Golfe TV Africa, to the 1 p.m. English News Edition, and I'm with Hazel. Hazel, how are you?
Very fine, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. ADOGLO. Are you good to go?
I'm good to go. Let's get down into this. So first, we start off with papers coming in from the National Territory. We start off from the Martin Lead. Now, the front page of the Martin Lead reveals 48, talking about the death cases of terrorism in the world. Africa notes 48% of terrorism cases, of the death cases in terrorism. Does that surprise you? 48% of terrorism cases in the world. Africa ranks 48% of dead cases, mortality rates.
It's not surprising, you know, the spate of terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso, in Chad, in Nigeria, even in the northern part of Benin Republic is quite alarming, and seriously, it is something that we really need to take very seriously.
Also on page 5 of the Martin Leaves, talking about the celebration of the girl child in the Republic of Benin as opposed to 11th of October. And how did you celebrate the 11th of October, if I ask? I know you did a report.
Yes, I did a report. I did a report. So I went to a university to get the feel on some of the girl child. You know, they had an opportunity to express themselves on the challenges the girl child faces, and I also had an opportunity to interview some personnels in the industry, in the academia, and from the conversation with the various girl children, or rather the girl child, the various students, you know, we had people talking about female genital mutilation. We had people talking about the fact that in some careers, the African society stereotypes you. When you are a woman, it's seen that there are some career paths you shouldn't do. There's a level you're not supposed to ascend to because you're a woman. You know, talking about, and then one of the women, she's a school owner, she talks about the fact that there's a lot of responsibility on the girl child. So the parents expect a lot from her siblings expect a lot from her. So this creates a feeling, a want, a desire to want to leave the country. And this makes her a victim from human traffickers. You know, people say, you know, you need to go seek greener pastures. They pay a lot of money, and at the end of the day, they are slave workers in Libya, in some African countries and even European countries with terrible working conditions. And then another of the ladies, Mrs. Ayo, talks about the fact that she studied engineering, and she said in her university, her department, there were like 200 engineering students, if I can remember clearly. And she said there were like 25 female engineers.
I'm even shocked. I thought you were going to say 2.
No, like 25. So this literally meant the fact that they had to prove themselves. Yeah. And my elder sister also studied metallurgical engineering, and she was the only girl in her department. Wow. So, you know, there are some stereotypes that just tell you a woman cannot do this, a woman cannot do that, you know. So it just simply talks about the fact that there are a lot of stereotypes, but we just encourage the girl child that they should not allow the environment to stereotype them. They should prove their worth. If they need to work extra hard, and show them that what a man can do, a woman can do better.
All right, that old saying.
Yeah.
All right, just that, you know, first thing I think, first it begins with awareness. The fact that women are aware, today's generation of women are aware, it's a start, and they understand that they have to do better. They have to do better. They have to take on the torch from what their parents and mothers could not do.
Exactly. Let me just interrupt you talking about the fact that the awareness is really very key. And I thank God, because right now the awareness is actually increasing. Back then in the 90s, in the 80s, we find that a lot of African parents just feel the woman's place is in the kitchen. You send a woman to just primary school and then you send the boy to university because they just feel it's not worthwhile to invest in a woman. But right now you see parents that have only girls and they're not fidgeting. They're like, these people are also children. You know, they are willing to invest in the girl child to send them to university and even their masters.
The awareness, don't you think, is as a result of social media? The fact that we see it's heavily influenced by what is in the West.
Well, the awareness, social media, what is in the West, the fact is that it is beneficial.
To
because
women.
I personally feel that women are the bedrock of the development of every society. So when you educate the girl child, you educate the society.
Look at what is happening in Iran, for example. The fact about how hijabs and the morality police saying women cannot do this. You know, they are one of the women that are under the most bondage in the world. And the Taliban holding down their women. You have to cover all the women's. You have to cover every part of your body. And women coming out and saying, now, no, we don't want to. It's not the most important thing in the world to cover our hair. It's not the most important. There are more important things in the world than just covering up our bodies. And that is what has caused a rebuke, especially in Iran, with a lot of protests going on in Iran right now. So, I mean, looking at October 11, it must also ignite the passion
right for the girl child to know that she can be everything she needs to be and wants to be.
All right, moving on from the Mat 10 lead, finally, we head to the next paper of the edition as we touch on the Matinale. The front page of the Matinale talks about the mission and investigation of Senatu. We're talking about how there was a power outage on Friday and the loss of lives that happened right there. That's on page 7. Also looking at the bottom half of the paper, it talks about the conference of ministers that takes page 8, 9, 13, and 15, and it says recruitment of 150 custom officers announced. Also, the prices of fuel and gas has increased at the pump. All right, more inflation in Africa. Moving on from that, we head to the next paper of the edition as we touch on the nation Nigeria. The front page of the nation Nigeria Review presents manifesto to APC, NWC governors, presidential campaign council members, party ESCO meets. We have Tinubu pledging to his people, delivering his manifesto. Obedience to Peter Obi has not yet released his manifesto, but Tinubu has come out to release his manifesto. Does that not tell you that Tinubu is right into action? He's back into the country, ready to shoot his shots.
Saying they have 6 months. They have more than it's in February. You have November, you have December, you have January, February. Let's say they have 4 to 3 months. So there's no rush. There's no pressure. There's a lot of time. APC, PDP, the Labour Party, they take their time. Whenever they are ready to release their manifesto, we're waiting for them.
All right. Also, 10,000 police officers undergoing training on digital skills, says IG.
Very important.
Very important. You know why it's very important? In my opinion,
important.
I feel like a lot of police officers do not understand the process or the concept even of cyber theft. When police officers see young men in Nigeria, young Nigerian boys holding phones or a laptop, because you're with a laptop,
because you're looking good, you're looking fresh. The next thing you are a suspect.
They pick your phone and say, "Open your emails." Do you have rights?
You don't have a right. That is like a trampling on my fundamental human rights.
Exactly, but how do you explain that when this guy is holding a gun? So I feel this education helps them understand that you do not have a right to just invade a person's
privacy.
Cyberspace.
Cyberspace, very true.
So yeah, you're going to make 4 points.
And then also talking about the fact that, there are a lot of crimes that could be, there are a lot of criminals that could be caught if the police is really, really in tune with, with the technology and the like. Do you understand? I was just narrating just the other day that this week, I and my husband were walking, and then he was pressing his phone, and then this young man just came with a bike and zoomed and snatched his phone from his hand. Like, I was like,
yeah, very sad.
I couldn't understand. But then when I reported to one of the policemen standing at the station at the Etoile Rouge, he was telling me that if I actually have the pack of the phone, I could send it to the commissariat and they could actually trace the phone. And I also conversing with our colleague Tata Rashia, and she was talking about the fact that her brother-in-law, they stole his phone and he had the pack and they traced it to the person that bought the phone. Do you understand? So this is just the police technology making life easier for
people. So
it's really very important.
It's quite important that these police officers get in touch with today's norms.
Yeah.
Also, CGN to politicians don't put pressure on the judiciary. We have that on page 5. Students' visas restrictions on Nigeria is likely UK wants. Page 3. Hazel.
Please give us a recap of that story.
All right, students. Work visa restrictions on Nigerians likely. UK United Kingdom words.
This is simply
an influx.
That I was telling you the other day that on Twitter, a student was talking about the fact that in her university in the United Kingdom, out of 100%, 80% were Nigerians. And out of the 80%, like 50% were Yorubas. And this doesn't mean that the amount of schooling in the United Kingdom is quite affordable. It simply just tells you the amount of influx the Nigerians are coming into the United Kingdom. So right now, I'm sure the United Kingdom is like, what's really happening? When Nigerians are coming into our country, if we don't put a stop to it.
Yeah, they have to put a cap. There has to be a cap.
But then it simply tells the government of Nigeria something,
to do better,
that they are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because if your country is very comfortable, if things are
why
going
do Americans not come to school here?
You
Why
understand, you would not
here?
want to leave your country. But if the educational system is wrong, if people cannot get job on merit, if things are not going correctly, Nigerians will continue to look for greener pastures in various parts of the world.
The UK is too far. The UK is for those that can afford it. For those that can't afford the UK,
they cross over
to Benin Republic, even without French.
Exactly.
So
and they're doing well.
And they're doing. That's to tell you what's happening in the country. All right, moving on from the nation Nigeria, head to the next Brother edition. We have to go very fast now because our time is catching up real quick. We head now to the Punch. The front page of the Punch reveals insecurity may hamper elections, and Northwest Southeast INEC has revealed. Now, Mahmood worries over security of commission officials, election materials, and voter safety. Now, this is as a result of the strong insecurity in the north. Now, what do you think will happen? Real quick, what do you think will happen in the north? Because we still have a whole lot of insecurity that has not been squashed in the north. And elections is coming up.
Insecurity has two sides to it. I'm going to be given the context of the election.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about the elections in Nigeria come 2023, February presidential elections, when there's insecurity in a country, when there's insecurity in a state, when there's insecurity in a territory, the citizens would be afraid to come and vote.
Yeah.
That is part A. That is a disadvantage. But then part B is electoral observers will be afraid to go and observe. So rigging could be the order of the day, and there'll be nobody to literally say, okay, it's the truth or it's a lie because of the insecurity. So it could work for the favor of a party, and it could also be a disadvantage point for another party.
But yeah, INEC might also point and say, okay, now we have the new INEC, the new digital machines that says,
But you still need personnel on ground.
No,
How
definitely,
many personnel will be willing to go to places where there's high level of insecurity? Would they just want to lose their life for just a day or just a week?
I know I would not want to.
Okay.
All right, moving on from that, we head now to the next report. This I should touch on the Daily Guide Ghana. Front page of the Daily Guide Ghana reveals Apostle Nyakeme blasts fake pastors. Aisha Wango, not my clients, but I have on page 3. Also, police officer and others in Ghana for 1.6 million Ghanaian shillings job scam. We have that on page 6. Also, AG secures 186 convictions in Galamsey. I was talking about Galamsey yesterday. We have that on page 3. Moving on from that, we head now to the New Vision Uganda. The front page of the New Vision Uganda reveals Uganda gets Ebola vaccine. That is good because of the current crisis they're facing due to Ebola in the country. 3 billion tons of graphite discovered in Gitgum district. We have that on page 3 of the New Vision Uganda. Moving on from that, head now to the Star Kenya. Ruto, I will not tolerate graft in my government. Says he will lead from the front, and anyone found culpable will pay the price. Anyone found culpable will pay the price. This is after a lot of lobbying and after a lot of investors. You think his investors will pay the price?
We could only wish that he will be very fair in the paying of the price. What is good for the goods is good for the gander. If someone in your party is caught being corrupt, the person should be made to dance to the tune of the law.
All right, that's on page 6. You can find out more about that if you're interested in Kenyan politics. Moving on from that, well, this is all we have for you for this edition of the African Newspaper Review as the time has caught up with us. Thank you, Hazel, for the analysis.
Thank you so much, Metoke ADOGLO. So go ahead with the first recap.
All right, now speaking to journalists on Wednesday, former Chadian opposition figure Sahel Kebezabo promised to accompany the young Chadian ruler, Idriss Déby Itno.
And we also saw in this news edition that according to statistics, girls all over the world are victims of inequality and unfair treatment in various spheres.
In Sudan, 7 million children did not go to school, particularly in rural areas where nearly 2/3 of the 45 million inhabitants live.
And of course, our dear viewers, this is where we conclude today's news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. Now, I am Hazel OGOIGBE.
And I'm Michael ADOGLO, and do have yourself a lovely day.
ministre d'État en charge de l'économie et des finances, président des commissions d'expropriation en République du Bénin, communique. Dans le cadre de l'expropriation et de l'indemnisation des personnes affectées par les projets PAP d'aménagement d'un site balnéaire d'exception à Avlekete,